Hey guys, welcome back. So, in this episode, we're going to try something quite different, which is we're going to actually walk you through some of the things that we want to share and how to make the best use of Tana, just some new features that we've discovered. Nick is going to walk us through some cool stuff. And yeah, we're going to be sharing our screen and we're going to break it down. So, let us know how you like this format. And as always, you can join our community in the link in the description to keep in touch with us and just learn more about Tana together, right? So, yeah, what's up, Nick? How's it going?
Great. It's a sunny day outside and I'm inside. Okay, never mind.
Nice one, man. So yeah, you said you had some things in mind that you wanted to discuss. Bring it on. What you got?
Yeah. Well, let me share my screen here. So I've got, let's see, one, two, three, four, five things here. And
Hmm.
the first is something that in a previous conversation, I said that I didn't think that we would be able to use filters or searches to filter other searches because, that could really mess things up. Maybe there would be some weird recursion going on. But D. Todd, she mentioned that you can actually do that in search nodes now just by referencing a search node. So I've got these two search nodes that I previously created. One is just listing everything that was created in the last 14 days,
Nice.
and another is listing everything that was tagged animal ever. And so if you look at the last 14 days, it's
Yep.
got a bunch of stuff. I'm
Nice.
scrolling. And then anything tagged animal, it's like a dozen different animals.
Mhm.
But what I want to do is like do an intersection of those two. So there's only anything that was created in the last 14 days and was tagged animal. Now
Okay.
this is pretty simple. It's a toy example. You could
Yep.
do that pretty easily in a search, but I want to do this just by dovetailing, overlapping those two searches that I've already made. And that's what this one does. And it just has these three bears that these are three animals that I tagged in the last 14 days, and that's it.
Okay.
And so if you go in here, you're just looking for the children of these two nodes, these search nodes that I referenced. And that's it. It's an and statement here. Does that make sense?
Okay. So this is really cool, right? So if I hear you correctly and if I understand this, you're essentially like having this really nice way to structure different searches, and then you can you're just grouping things in a really clever way so that things are a lot more manageable. Is that right?
Yeah, like this is, as I said, it's a toy example. It's pretty simple, but imagine
Yep.
you've got some kind of search that's already really complex, where you're looking for something that has a certain tag within a certain date range and only under certain types of nodes. Given this particular context, you've got all that set up, which has a lot of ands, ors, some logic, and other stuff.
Mm,
And then at that point, you're like, oh, but I also need to make sure that I don't have this certain set of results. I would really love to just take everything that I have already, and then just filter those using this other search that I used another place. And
gotcha.
previously, I didn't think you could do that.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, I was definitely struggling with this the other day, like just having a couple of parameters that I want to kind of reuse, but then I would just have to reference the other one and then try to replicate it there. But what you're doing is just recycling different filters, right? Like this list from the last 14 days is something that you can now reuse, right? Can you open the list, the one at the very top, just to see
Yeah,
that one? Yeah, just for anyone wondering, like how it goes. So, like that one, can you open the configure live search just to take a look?
pretty simple.
Yeah, exactly. So create the last 14 days. So the thing about this that is really nice that now you can have a bunch of like searches that you can reuse because create the last 14 days, as simple as it is, you do have to do all cap locks, uppercase, and type it exactly. But now it's just something that you can insert wherever you want, right? Yeah, that's crazy. Really cool.
Yep. Yeah. And when you're doing this in real life, you're probably
Yeah.
not going to be doing simple stuff like this. You're
Yeah.
probably going to have two pretty complex searches that you don't want to try to figure out how the logic would work to make them work well together. Instead, you'll just have one and then you use the other one basically as a filter within that one. Or, and this is the example that D. Todd had in the Slack community,
Mhm.
you can have an OR field, an OR logic connector here if you want both. You want everything that you've created in the last 14 days,
Yep.
and you want everything that you've tagged animal. For me, my purposes, I'm usually
Yep.
struggling with I want this set of results, but only with this subset within there, you know?
Okay. Okay. So at the moment you said like that happens if you do an or statement, like either this or this. But by default, what is happening right now, like, is this, like you said, is almost like a Venn diagram, right? Like, can you break that down, especially for people at home that might be like, oh, what's going on? Confused, I don't know how to
Yeah.
see.
So,
Yeah.
oh man, yeah. If you're not familiar with live queries at all, when this says and, it means each node that is going to be returned has to satisfy this condition and that condition,
Yep.
which makes it a smaller set that's returned at the end.
Right.
Now, you could have an or statement inside here. Let's see if I can do it pretty quickly. So I add an or, and then I do the child of Command C, Command V. Now, if you do this, it only has, each node has to fulfill either this one or that one, which is going to have a much larger set than either one of them on their own. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. I actually wanted to just, for anyone that's new to these ideas, I just want to do a quick diagram. Okay, yeah. So for, again, anyone at home, I think what you were explaining was very good, because if we have two circles, so we have last 14 days, and then we have super tag animal, and the and statement means that it needs to overlap, meaning that it needs to cover both of those things, right? Is
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So now for or, which is like what you were showing, it would be, it can either have this or this, which essentially just means all of these, and all of this. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. You just wanted to make sure that that explanation made sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. I just know that I wanted to talk about this because I talked a couple episodes ago as if this is impossible, and it's already possible. I wonder if
Really?
maybe they can make it easier in the
Mhm.
future where, because this is kind of a hack, kind of a workaround. And that's
Yep.
often how you get new features in the future is, when you're building a product, you realize people keep doing this workaround. What if we
Right.
turn that into an explicit feature?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I'm trying to see it from the standpoint of someone who's quite new to Tana. I see how this is complicated, but what's the alternative? It's just not being able to achieve it, because without this
Mm.
workaround, well, you can achieve it, right? But it's just very clunky. Is that the case right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say very clunky, but if these things weren't here for right here
Yeah.
for me to copy and paste, if I had to go seek them out, that would be
Yeah.
clunky. Now,
What?
you could, let's say I do a Command K or no, Command
Uh,
S, and I try to
okay.
find like 14 days. Now I can bring this up, but it's because it's not a very big workspace that I'm working in right now.
What about the add symbol to find the reference? Would that work?
Okay, yep, that would
Yeah,
work.
nice.
Okay,
Interesting. I
of
guess that's
course.
easier. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
But one
then
would have to have some naming convention, right? Because as your workspace
yep,
gets
you would
cluttered, it's
have to
quite hard to
know.
actually find
Yep,
what is called exactly. Yeah.
mhm,
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I think that wraps up like this point. I think it's an interesting workaround. So you said this was in the community by D Todd, right? So
yep,
she shared this.
yep,
Nice. Very cool.
and the guy who goes by
Yep.
Syncretism was the one who
Okay.
originally shared it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. That's pretty cool stuff. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a bunch of workarounds and a bunch of cool things that I've seen people do.
Okay, so this next one, I wonder if you're gonna get excited by this one. This is
Okay.
another one that was shared in the community, the original Slack community. I'm calling it long down
Okay. You
because
made that
it'll
up? That's cool.
yes, you're leveraging Markdown to do long form writing.
Oh,
So
what a name. Locked out is genius.
this is something that I just copied from a random tweet that was
Okay.
in my timeline at the moment. And so the way that I got this was you hit Command K
Yep.
and it's what is it? It's
Paste Spintex?
right. Yeah, paste as
Yeah.
code. And then you can select which code you want.
Markdown.
So I used
Yes.
Markdown. You can also do Vim. You can do whatever
Oh,
you
I didn't know
want.
it had Vim. Yeah, that's
They
cool. That's
have
cool.
they have all of these
Yep.
options. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and the guy, Phil Dearson, just recommended Markdown, but you
Yep.
could choose any of these, and then you just type in here however you want, and then you can copy and paste into whatever your endpoint is. So what are your thoughts on this when you see this?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, I totally know what you mean. To be honest, I don't know why I didn't mention this, because it's something that I do sometimes. But I have noticed, let me just delete this one. So I have noticed a couple of limitations with this. One is, for instance, the fact that let me just bring a longer text. Okay. So let's bring this longer text and let's just paste it here. This is a speech by Charlie Chaplin. I always use it as an example. Okay. Actually, here's one of the limitations. I'm actually trying to paste it and it's
Uh-huh.
quite hard to paste it in this box, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, what I have to do now is paste as Markdown and then it should work. Yeah, there it is. So that's one of the actual limitations. I actually forgot about that. The fact that if you want to copy something from here into here,
Mm-hmm.
right now it worked. But if I want to bring it from the browser and paste it in
Hmm.
here, sometimes that doesn't work. So
Hmm.
that's a strange little thing. Okay. So yeah, one of the things that obviously is kind of a pro and a con is what if you want to do headings, right? So this heading one, it opens a super tags, which is not what you want because in Markdown, whenever you want to do headings, you do hashtag space. So heading, let's call it heading two is actually what I want. So the fact that it triggers the super tag is a little bit annoying. However, what I do like about this is that now for people that like me want to have like the ability to write long from inside of Tana, now you can do like line breaks. You can rearrange things. Usually the copy paste once you're inside this block should work pretty well. So yeah, that I like, but at the end of the day, like it's not a very like appealing place to write, in my opinion, just because when you want to do a heading three, you want it to look like a heading three. You know, you want it to expand. Otherwise, it feels like I don't know, like a bit raw, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. But given that Tana is such a polished like tool, this makes it feel like okay, you're zooming into like a more primitive terminal looking thing. But I definitely agree that this is one of the best workarounds available if you do want to write it long form and yeah, especially Markdown if you do want to have headings. What's cool is that then you can just select all of these and then copy it. I wish there was a button to copy. Sometimes that's a case in some apps. I'm sure there's some way to hack that, so that'd be pretty cool. But
I
yeah, now it
assume
does
if
seem
you
like
hit like
constantly
Command A, yeah, yeah.
E- exactly, yeah. So Command A, thankfully, it doesn't seem to select any other nodes above it. Yeah. Command A does select correctly. So actually, that's really nice. So I've done this a little bit in the past. I never really used it as a primary way to write, but to be honest, it's a decent workaround. Like I don't think it's that bad. So
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty cool. Nice, good. I like the name. That's my favorite thing about it.
Awesome. I'm
Go ahead.
glad you like that. This next thing here is just kind of a note, not really a demonstration of Faye in the Slack community mentioned that they made some changes to how fields work. And this is something that I actually discovered while I was recording the latest course updates. By the way, we are making frequent updates to the course for Tana Fundamentals. The fields updates just got pushed out a few days ago.
Yes.
So, and there's going to be more coming.
Yeah, Nick has been doing crazy work with the fields. I finished watching all of it. Amazing stuff. Like, yeah, people are really gonna benefit from like everything that you put out there. Like, honestly, I'm super happy with the way the course is shaping. So, obviously, like me sending praise to Nick also benefits me. But like, yeah, I just believe that the course is like the best course out there for Tana. So, do check it out in the description. Cool stuff, man.
Yeah. But yeah, something new with how fields are working is that previously it didn't matter where you put the fields. If
Mhm.
you created a field, it would pop up in that little drop down when you're typing to add a field to a super tag or
Yep.
anywhere. But now, by default, that doesn't happen unless you specifically go to that section in the field configuration pane and say move to schema. If you don't do that, then it's not going to pop up as one of the automatic drop downs. Does that make sense?
Kind of, kind of. Do you have maybe some visuals as you explain this just to make sure I
Yeah.
follow?
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn this into a tag of
Yep.
something.
Okay.
Okay. So I configure that tag and I add a field here,
Perfect.
newer field.
Yep.
Okay. Now, when I try to create a field here and I want to bring in newer field, that doesn't happen because this
Right.
newer field lives inside this tag and it
Yep.
only lives there locally. If I
Right.
want this to be available globally, I need to go in the configuration pane for that field and hit move to schema.
Okay. Okay. I get you.
Once I do that, newer field is available to me there.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting. So, like, were you literally not able to find it if it wasn't moved to the schema?
Before,
Yeah.
everything appeared as a recommended field.
Right.
So if I created 16 different newer fields previously in super
Yeah.
tags and in
Yep.
tables and everything, you would see
Right.
16 of these pop up. Now,
Okay.
none of them pop up unless you move them to
Unless you move
schema.
them.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. So that's a change that they actually made to the way that it works, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think the change actually happened while I was recording the course
Oh,
material, so it was a little confusing at first.
yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. So, but is this something that you like? Do you like the new behavior? Does it make sense to you?
Honestly, I do not like it, partly because I was familiar with the old way. Even though the old way was confusing in its own right, I got
Right.
used to it. But also, like Faye said, this is just temporary fix until
Mm,
they actually address more of a proper UX and UI solution. And
gotcha.
so even they inside Tana understand that this is not the ideal solution, but I'm sure that they'll work a better solution into the product where it's more clear to the user what is happening and why, you know? There
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
definitely this is something that we've talked about previously
Hmm.
where like when you're working in Tana, you don't realize that you're accessing previous versions of a field or that you're actually creating different ones. It was hard to tell which you were doing, you know?
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting because I do remember that you were mentioning in in the course lessons that you were doing how fields can be a lot more powerful than we give them credit. Like actually, I've learned a lot from you in the sense of how you use fields because I've always really perceived them as like they only belong inside of Supertext and perhaps as like the easiest approach for beginners to start using them. But something that's actually quite interesting is like a use case like this. Okay, so let's say for instance we have an example of a field, just to kind of like show what I mean. So let's say that you are deciding whether you want to buy a new laptop or not. This is something that I would actually do quite a lot, right? Like you have the pros and then you have the cons, and then you want to say like, okay, pros, it'd be nice. Cons, be expensive, right? So this is kind of like a traditional way in which like someone might just start using Tana and not really thinking too much about it. But something that, I think is actually quite useful to start thinking about is how you can actually leverage fields to do this in a more, I don't know, like a more efficient way, right? So then you create a field called pros, and then you have another one called cons, and then here you can start listing things, right? So be nice, expensive, right?
Mhm.
So usually I would always, in the past, I would always have to create like a super tag and then add the fields to the super tag, like something like, I don't know, let's call it decision. Okay, so you can here configure the tag by right clicking, or you can do Ctrl Shift click, right? And it opens it here. But then I would normally just create pros and then cons and so on. But that would just make too many steps sometimes. All you just want to do is just have like almost something like a node, like I was doing before, which was pros like that, and then start writing here. But I do like how we can use fields to leverage that, right?
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I really like where you're going with this because if you can
Mhm.
keep this up, this is how I operate in my own workspaces is I type just, a bunch of bullet points and then I indent and then as I'm typing
Yep.
things out, sometimes I realize I'm typing the same node over and over again. And I'm realizing, okay, this could be a field. So I turn that into a field. And now I have node node, field. And notice,
Mm,
oh, I'm using the same field for a bunch of different nodes. These are all
yeah.
the same type of node. This could be a super tag that I have
Right.
that field a part of that super tag. And so, yeah, this helps me, get momentum and traction and just typing stuff into Tana as just bullet points. And then I transition to fields, transition to super tags. And it's just a naturally emergent design of my system then.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. Like the combination of using nodes with fields and then how that evolves into more advanced super tag is a good
Mhm.
way to approach it because the approach that I've always had is like, okay, everything's a super tag. I mean, every time that I need to reuse the field, I would always depend on the super tag, but sometimes not needed. Like in this case, right? You can just do the field straight away. Let me ask you this. It might be a bit of a tangent, but I'm very curious to see what you think. So if I were to have like something that I do quite often for my YouTube channel is like, like YouTube videos. Actually, I would have something like YouTube videos, which is a super tag. And then this one would be like, let's just call it topic one for now. And then here I would configure something like title ideas. Title ideas. So now when I expand this, obviously I have title ideas right there. And then I would have like, let's call this for now, let's just call it idea one, idea two, idea three, right? something that I've always struggled with in terms of fields. Let me just zoom into this just to make it cleaner. Something that I've always struggled is like, okay, I have other things in here, so let's just call the script. So I just pasted some like lorem ipsum, just as an example. So here I would have like a script, and I would have a bunch of tags, and let's say that I also have, let's just say, more tags, like, I don't know, concept to focus on or the video, and then I would have more tags, right? So in general, like when I'm working like this, I do want to zoom into these and be able to work there and then go back and zoom into something else. Okay. So as this list gets longer and longer, and I want to have maybe even, I don't know, like idea 4.1, I just want to have like even more levels of granularity and just like branching into things, especially as this gets long. I want to be able to zoom into only the titles and not see the script. And that's when I get into trouble because I can't really zoom into the field. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then what I end up doing is just, I kind of end up being a bit redundant, and I just indent all of these inside of these so that
Hmm.
I can collapse it and then I can expand into this.
Hmm.
So I wonder if that's something you also do, if that's a struggle that you have, because right now I have a node that is named the same as the title and is quite redundant.
I want to
Yep.
try something out. Hit
Yeah.
Command K
Yep.
and view, type view. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's
Does it work?
experiment. Put the cursor inside title ideas.
Okay.
Now try that. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, okay. Okay.
And
Actually, that's
and
quite interesting.
and then you
I
can zoom
didn't.
in to those. Oh, but that doesn't. Hmm.
No, I mean, it doesn't solve that particular problem, but it's actually something I never thought of. Actually, using a field as a way to visualize things differently. Just to experiment. Let's see if something comes out of this. View as table. Okay, that's very interesting. I never thought of this, but yeah, it doesn't solve the other problem. I don't know. Something comes to mind.
This
Otherwise,
is this
yeah.
is super interesting. You can have fields within fields then,
Oh, yeah, you're
because
right. Because
columns are
usually,
fields.
yeah, that's right. Because usually
Yeah.
that's not possible, right?
No, it is
Actually,
possible, actually. Yeah.
it is possible, but I don't think it's possible within Supertags.
Oh, yeah, it
Or
is.
is it? Look at
Yeah.
that. It says fields nested under others will not work as expected. So it seems like it works, but I think they don't like you to do that. Is that right?
I know I've seen it done previously. This is how you can kind of access, you could call it metadata about fields.
Yeah. Okay. So you just ignore this message and pretend it didn't happen?
I think that message is new. I haven't seen it
It might
before.
be new. Yeah. I mean, either way, that's crazy. Nice. I like this idea. It's pretty interesting. I don't know if it solves like the problem of wanting to zoom into just
Mhm.
these ones,
I'm curious.
but yeah.
Try
Uh,
command click or command shift click on the icon there. Yeah.
Command shift click.
Uh,
I just did.
what
Let me
about what
just
about
open
just
Supertags.
command click?
Command click.
Okay,
Same.
same thing. Right
Alt
click on
click.
that.
Oh, I just did alt click and that expanded. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Alt click
Weird.
expands it all.
Okay. We're learning a lot here. Right click on that icon now. I would really like to be able to zoom into
To
that.
zoom, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I really thought it should be possible, but I don't think it's possible yet.
Damn. Yeah, I'm not thinking of anything.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Interesting. Cool. That was an interesting tangent that I wanted to ask you, but
Yeah,
feel
but
free
I,
to.
I, I think this
Mhm.
explains one of the reasons why, like, I wasn't consciously aware of this, but
Yeah.
why I choose to have just a regular node for things
Mhm.
sometimes instead of a field. And this
Oh,
is
okay.
one of those
Yep.
reasons because I don't have
Mhm.
as many options for viewing and playing with the data if it's a field as
Yep.
opposed to a regular node.
That makes sense. So you essentially just say moving all of these underneath that one. Yeah. So just having it like that, and now obviously that solves the problem of just being able to zoom, which is what I
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, yeah, I guess I don't tend to use normal nodes inside of Supertext like this. I always default towards like, oh, fields go inside of Supertext. But
Hmm.
it's just good to think about the fact that you could just have a normal bullet point and that's fine. Is it less searchable though later, right? Is it? Or less harder to filter later? Hard to create a database out of it, let's say.
Yeah,
Or a
like
search stuff.
there's gradations of kind of
Yeah.
formalizing things. And so the more formalized you make it, the more searchable and the more
Yeah.
organizable it is. And fields are a huge part of that formalization.
Okay.
So are super tags. So if you
Yep.
and the combination, if you have a super tag that leverages fields, then
Mhm.
that is super searchable and it's super fungible. You can do all sorts of things with it.
Nice. Yeah, I get you. I get you. That makes sense. Cool. Nice. That close to my tangent on that.
All right, so we covered fields,
Mhm,
RTL, right to left typing. This is something that was just brought up in the community recently,
mhm,
and it's a requested feature. And I just wanted to mention that, yes, Tana is aware of it and they have plans to work on it, but there's no release date or anything that's settled, but they're aware of it and they're going to be working on it. And this is for whether it's Hebrew or Arabic. There's a few other languages that type right to left instead of left to right, like
mhm.
English and most other European languages.
I saw that you actually shared these research in the community to someone that was asking. I think it was Jonathan. Yeah, he was asking like, is this something that you guys think is going to be prioritized at any point? And obviously, like you say, like we don't know. I mean, we don't work for Tana, but it does feel like something that, like you say, they're aware of. And at the moment, there's kind of some workarounds. One of the advantages of Tana working as a browser app is that it's possible to hack certain things. Like we've talked in the past about like things like Stylus, which is a Chrome extension that allows you to manipulate the code of the way things look with CSS. If that sounds like gibberish, it just means like you can write code that changes the way things look. That's it. And there's ways in which you can do this right to left for, like Hebrew, yeah, those sort of languages that obviously write opposite. Because at the end of the day, like those workarounds can be quite helpful. But yeah, especially Tana, the way that it's designed, obviously is not designed to work for those languages yet. So that'd definitely be a nice thing to implement in the future and to have. Nice.
Yeah. It's always nicer to have native support, even if there is a
Yeah.
workaround.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Here's another one, auto-enriching URLs. And this is not just for URLs, but this is the
Mhm.
example. And Faye put this together in the FAQ section on the Tana website, which I highly recommend checking out. And what it is, this is just the name of the command. You can convert any node into a command node. And all that's inside it is this autofill fields command. That's a sub command. And you turn these two things on. And if you want, you can specify what model that you're using. So that's what this test autofill command is. What it does, I'll run it here on this URL to a tweet, and it'll take a few seconds to run. But then what you'll notice is it renamed it and it gave a little description in the description beneath it and still keeping the URL there.
Nice. That's so cool. That's so cool. Like, actually, how about you walk me through setting it up? And that would serve as a tutorial for anyone that wants to set that particular thing because I think it's a really nice thing to have. But would you be able to break it down for us?
Sure, let's do that. So first of all, to make a command, you have to convert a
Hmm.
regular node to a command node. So you hit Command K and then convert to command node. And then you can call it whatever you want. What do we want to call this one?
URL enricher? Is that a word?
Sure.
Cool.
There we go. And then we go inside our URL enricher. And right now it's not doing anything. So if we have any fields, it might not really execute anything. So we need to have a sub command. So I type @ and what we're looking for is autofill fields. That's the command that we need. Then you configure it by clicking here. And then this is where you start using some fields. And you start with, there's autofill title, and there's also autofill description. And we turn both of those on. And then you don't need to select which GPT model that you're going to use, but let's include that because I did that in the original one. And for some fields, you can select from a list of predetermined options. And this is one of those cases. So you just need to make sure that these are both turned on. And if you want, you add the model that you want to use. And so that's all you need to do.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
by the
So,
way, this isn't
uh
just for URLs. There's nothing mentioning URLs here. It could be
mhm.
really for any node, hypothetically.
Nice. Yeah. So, a couple of things just for people that want to set this up to consider. It does seem like you first need to set up your API, which is like the almost like password that it comes connected to your OpenAI. If all of that sounds like I don't know what's going on, I actually do have a tutorial on this on my YouTube channel, so I might link it below until we have like some more resources about this, which is like how to set up OpenAI, which is a company that owns ChatGPT, to enable these sort of features because it does seem like by default it wouldn't work, and then you have to go to the bottom right. Maybe Nick, if you want to show them bottom left, and then Tana Labs, AI for builders. You enable that, and then again, I do have a tutorial that breaks it down from there, and then you can enable all the things that Nick said. But yeah, cool stuff.
Cool.
I have some
Yeah.
use cases. What
Yeah.
about if you just write a paragraph and you want to generate a title and description for that, right?
Yeah, I think it would do something similar. Do you have anything ready that we could test it
Yeah,
on?
let's do the Charlie Chaplin and give that a go. Yep.
Okay, so we have all of this stuff here, and
Hmm.
let's hide it just to make it even more magical. All right, so Command K and URL enricher, which we know is already more than URLs, but
Yep.
we're going with that. Okay, so it's thinking,
Yeah, which definitely that command we should probably just rename into, I don't know, like text enrich or something like that. Oh, there it is. Cool. So it adds, okay, it capitalized Charlie Chaplin because I did in
mhm.
lowercase. It also capitalized speech and the whole text seems to, yeah, that whole description obviously wasn't there. So it generated a nice description. If there wasn't any title, maybe it would have come up with a bit of a summary of what the speech is about, right? But what I
Actually,
really like,
I
yeah,
think
tell me, tell
you
me.
just had Charlie Chaplin, right? And it added speech. I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe, or if it was speech, I know it was lowercase. So maybe
Yeah.
what it does is like it improves the text, the title, right?
So here's where it gets a little confusing because I think
Yeah,
it included what you had written here
yeah,
and all of this and
yep.
summarized, oh, okay, this is what it is. So it is kind of like biased towards something similar to what you titled it already yourself, but it's not necessarily going to come up with the same exact thing.
Okay, got you. And I just realized that if you scroll the way down, that was a previous title that I had. It went to the bottom for whatever reason.
Oh,
I don't know why,
interesting.
but
Yeah, that's what it does. It pushes, so it doesn't just delete the previous title, which I thought it was
mm,
just replacing it,
yep,
but it pushes
it
it
moved it
down
down.
to the end. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. I like this feature. That's really cool. It's a really fast way to give titles to things that you write, things that you maybe copy and you just want to know what it is at a quick glance. So
hmm
Uh, so yeah, that's really cool.
This
I
could
like
be
that.
very useful for something like if I'm taking notes and like I see
Mhm,
a great tweet and I copy and paste the URL,
mhm.
I'm going to take my own notes also, obviously, but as a
Right.
good first draft and for like having some kind of automated naming, something like this is very useful.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Just to speed up the whole workflow. Let me share my screen. I wanted to just share maybe one final thing, and then we can start wrapping it up. But something that I did notice, and this is something I kind of discovered by accident, so I don't know how aware you are. But in general, I did notice that a lot of these things were just expanded by default as you were going through them.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, you would have like all of these extra nodes, just a bunch of things. There's this shortcut. I think it's also a command, but if you do, in my case, in Windows, Control Up Arrow, I guess
Mhm.
Command Up Arrow, it collapses everything
Mhm.
underneath it, right? And then Control Down Arrow, it expands everything again. So I don't know. Is that something that you use that you were aware of? In general, it might be
I
cool
was
for some
aware of
people.
that, especially I use command down all of the time, but
Oh, okay.
for some reason, I don't think of it as for this, that today, Tuesday, the thing that
Yeah.
is like the title of the page that I'm looking at, I don't
Yep.
think of it for some reason. It's something completely different in my mind. My mind just blocks
Yeah.
it out.
I know what you mean. Like it's easy to not think of the daily node as a
Yeah.
normal node, but it
It
is.
doesn't look
So
like a node anymore because it has those 6 dots instead of a node next to it.
that is true. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, that's like a good feature for anyone that wasn't aware of it. Just like
Yeah.
expand it all, collapse it all. So
Yeah.
yeah, just a quick
Totally.
thing. Nice. I think we broke it all down, right? Everything that you had in here.
I think so.
Cool. Yeah.
Uh, should we wrap it up then?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Let us know in the comments of this YouTube video if you like this new format where we essentially do kind of like these tutorials. We ask questions from each other. We discover new features. Yeah, I found it enjoyable. Like, let us know what you think. And of course, you can join our community in the description where you can keep in touch with us, ask us questions, and engage in future. Perhaps like we might bring back a bit of what we're doing in the past weeks, which was a lot more interactive kind of live stream thing. We might just do it a bit less often, but this is a format that we're experimenting because we used to do that in Twitter Spaces. Right now, we're just trying these new things. So do let us know. Anything else you'd like to add, Nick?
Nope, that's all good.
Cool. Again, we'll see you next week and hope you have a great week till then. Bye bye.
Cheers.